What red flag you are happy you ignored in your relationships? Partners still lived with their ex, separate bedrooms, after breakup for a couple of months, while the ex worked on finding an apartment, packing, and the finances associated with both. It definitely made for a weird dynamic, and I was hesitant, but I also learned a hell of a lot about how my partner treated people after a relationship ended. Firm boundaries, but still respectful of the ex as a human being and their boundaries as far as having a guest in the home. Met the ex twice, so I knew it wasn't some weird BS. His mom. He was a mama's boy, and it kinda put me off. I wasn't close to my parents, and didn't have a frame of reference when it came to parental relationships. His mom didn't like me much at first, and I realized over the years that I was keeping his family at arm's length because I didn't want to get attached and then lose another family. We've been together for a decade now. His mom and I text every so often. She hugs me every time she sees me, and encouraged me to mend my own relationship with my mother. And my boyfriend? Turns out it's easy to be a mama's boy when you live at home. When we moved out on our own, he put a little distance between them and started prioritizing our relationship more. Sometimes things just take a little bit more time. You'll never find the perfect someone. It takes work and compromise, and nothing is ever perfect, anyways. My now husband had a list of requirements for a future partner, and I didn't meet any of them. We started a very casual relationship a few months after his property settlement with his ex wife, and she kind of took him to the cleaners, given what she'd come into the relationship with and what she left with. He was very upfront that my situation ticked none of his boxes, and he didn't see a long-term future. So I nearly bailed when I realized I was falling in love with him. One night I had stayed the night with him at his place, and he was kind of rushing me out around 11 a.m., and it became clear he was going on a date. No foul, he'd been honest that he was still looking for the woman that ticked his boxes. But I was still gutted. He called me the next day to ask me over, and I assumed it was to end our casual relationship. He told me he'd gone on a date, that she'd asked him back to her place, and that he realized at that moment that he couldn't, and told her that he'd realized he was in love with someone else, and it was me. I'd bailed when I got scared I would have missed out on 13 years with this incredible man, 5 years married now. It was a red flag for sure, but he's always been one to learn. Best man I've ever known. TLDR. The checklist might not be a deal breaker when there's love. His temper. He would never speak up about little things, and then after months, he'd just explode and yell like crazy. I noticed the pattern, and we worked together to get to the root. He grew up in a family where everyone was expected to be happy and grateful and kind and thankful. No negativity. Ever. He never learned how to manage any emotions but happiness. Now he can say, "This is upsetting," or "I'm angry about XYZ," and then go work out, or ride his bike, or cool down and come back to talk through things when he's in a better headspace and less reactive. Kinda a reverse, but apparently I gave my now wife a red flag when we moved into a bigger, more expensive apartment than when she first moved in with me. We had been together for about 2 years, living together for one. I was previously divorced and had already experienced some issues with post-breakup housing. Before signing the new lease, I told my now wife that this new place was more than either of us could afford on our own, and that in the event of a breakup, we would both be on the hook to maintain the lease and would need to continue living there together until such a time as we could afford to break the lease or until it lapsed, whichever came first. This caused her considerable emotional anguish. She cried because she thought I was planning to leave her. She went to her friends for advice and got told by some it was a red flag and that she should run. Others told her it was no big deal. It wasn't until she told her parents, and they said that she should be happy that I was planning for both good and bad futures, and that it was a responsible thing to do. Our 10-year anniversary is approaching. Guess it wasn't a red flag after all. He was a very recently cleaned up addict. TBH, I didn't so much ignore this fact as just not realize how recently he'd gotten off the drugs. He'd only been clean for a few months when we got together, but somehow I assumed it had been longer than that. We had been together for about a year when the true timeline came to light. We've been together for 13 years now, married for 8, and he has never relapsed in that time. He is absolutely my person, I love him so much. Things about my dear man that I'm glad I brushed off. He is ungoogleable. The extent to which he does not have an identifiable online presence screams secret wife, maybe a serial killer. Considering that I found him on Reddit, but couldn't really verify anything except that he had cool dogs, I should have been so much more worried about meeting in person the first time. It still seems a bit impossible that everything he told me was true, but I now live in the house he said he was building, so the evidence is piling up. He can be quite unresponsive. He really heard me when I said that it made me worry about him, and he got pretty good about telling me when he was going radio silent. I wasn't too suspicious of being lied to about a hidden life wife, but it still forced me to get over a lot of trust issues. Having seen the way he interacts with his phone, I'm amazed he texted me back as often as he did. He wasn't interested in relationships, sex, dating, not any of it. I was definitely friend-zoned hard for a long time, and I'll be the first to admit that it hurt, but I appreciated the honesty. It took quite a while for him to realize I was his girlfriend, not because of anything I demanded, but because of how he treated me. Unclear on whether any of the sex, dating, relationship, cohabitation is just him being nice to me as a friend, but he seems to be having a good time, so I don't worry about it. This is a social pressure one. I play competitive sports and am quite fit. My girlfriend is overweight, and not by dumbass standards either. She's a bigger woman. The amount of people that told me her weight was nothing but a red flag and that I'd never be happy was quite possibly the best thing that ever happened to me. Just some of the dumbest projections about a person you can imagine. Now, 2 years later, I still am with an awesome woman who I'm really attracted to on a physical and intellectual level, and I got to cut out about 5 friends who were, and still are, obviously nasty people who had clearly different outlooks on love and attraction. She hasn't changed too much. I fell in love with her the way she is, and that's always going to be enough for me. The only time we ever feel the need to talk about weight-related stuff is thinking toward the future and how it might impact her health, which is a real concern of hers. But I digress. Win-win for me. 10 out of 10 red flag to ignore would ignore again. We went on a date where she was pretty standoffish and seemed like she didn't enjoy being there. I thought she hated me and planned to break contact until the friend who set us up told me that she was actually really into me, but can be socially awkward. As a massive introvert who knows awkward but can play extroverted, it reframed pretty much everything about that date for me. She eventually warmed up to me and we ended up dating for a while. Loved that dork. 3 weeks into dating, someone he hooked up with 5 weeks before texted him that they had syphilis and he should get tested. We had used condoms the whole time, but it was scary and easy to judge even though I knew I shouldn't. But we had been dating for 3 weeks. I could have panicked and left. You hear of chlamydia all the time, but not syphilis. He was clean, but regardless, he's my best friend, and love of my life now years later. Not a chance in the world he would ever cheat on me or anything like that. The sweetest, kindest soul I've ever met.